At 6:37 Eastern Time this morning, President Trump posts on Truth Social that he's postponing strikes on Iranian power plants for 5 days, claiming the US and Iran have had very good and productive conversations toward ending the war. What he doesn't mention is that 6,800 miles east, Iranian missile crews are repositioning launchers under the cover of what Tehran is calling Coordination Requirements, CNBC, for non-belligerent ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, a system that's effectively giving Iran veto power over 20% of the world's oil supply. And 48 hours ago, Trump gave Iran an ultimatum: open the strait without threat, or he would obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first, Al Jazeera. That deadline expired 90 minutes before Trump's announcement. Iran didn't open the strait, Trump didn't strike the power plants, and now both sides are calling it progress. The 5-day postponement everyone's celebrating isn't about peace talks, it's about buying time, and neither side is buying it for the same reason. Here's what actually led to this morning's announcement. At 19:45 Saturday night Eastern Time, Trump posts the 48-hour ultimatum. The threat: fully open the Strait of Hormuz, or he'll hit and obliterate Iran's power plants, beginning with the biggest one. CBS News. The target he's referring to is the Neka Combined Cycle Power Plant on Iran's Caspian coast, 2,400 megawatts of generating capacity serving Tehran and the Northern Industrial Corridor. Hitting it wouldn't just turn off lights in the capital, it would shut down water treatment facilities, hospital backup systems, and telecommunications infrastructure across a region of 18 million people. Under the Geneva Conventions, attacks on objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population are prohibited. Al Jazeera striking power plants falls into a legal gray area, permissible if they're supporting military operations, war crimes if the civilian harm is disproportionate. Trump's lawyers at the Pentagon have been wrestling with that calculus for 3 days, but Iran responds to the ultimatum not by reopening the strait, but by escalating the threat. Iranian officials warn that if the US attacks power plants, Iran will retaliate against energy and water infrastructure across the Gulf region, including in countries that host US military bases. CNBC. Think of it like this: Trump threatens to turn off Iran's lights. Iran threatens to turn off the lights, the water, and the air conditioning for every US soldier at Al Udeid in Qatar, where summer temperatures hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit and the base runs on desalinated water piped from coastal facilities. Iran's Defense Council adds that any attack on Iran's coasts or islands would trigger mine laying across Gulf sea lanes. CNBC. Not just the Strait of Hormuz, but the entire Persian Gulf. Oil tankers anchored outside the strait waiting for safe passage, those become sitting targets in a minefield that takes months to clear. By Sunday morning, the calculus shifts. Striking Iranian power plants doesn't just risk civilian casualties. It risks turning a regional conflict into a humanitarian catastrophe that traps coalition forces and global shipping in a Persian Gulf that becomes functionally impassable. The Oval Office, Sunday 14:30 Eastern Time. Trump, Secretary of Defense, and a secure video link to CENTCOM Commander General Dan Kane. The briefing lays out 3 problems, none of them good. Problem 1. The strait still isn't open. Iran hasn't formally declared a blockade, meaning under international law, the closure isn't legally binding, but military and industry sources say safety cannot be guaranteed, and ship tracking data shows traffic down 70%. ABC News. Over 150 vessels are anchored outside the strait, burning money on crew salaries and insurance premiums while their cargo sits idle. Iran has made 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships since February 28. ABC News. 2 Indian sailors dead, multiple vessels on fire. The IRGC transmits warnings via VHF radio that no ships will be permitted to pass without Iranian coordination, essentially turning the strait into a toll booth where Iran collects leverage. Problem 2. Trump's deadline just expired without action. The 48-hour ultimatum ran out at approximately 19:45 Monday evening Eastern Time. Iran didn't open the strait. Trump didn't strike the power plants. And now Tehran is watching to see if American red lines mean anything. The risk isn't just credibility. Iranian state media is already portraying Trump's delay as backing down, saying Trump, out of fear of Iran's response, backed down from his 48-hour ultimatum. Bloomberg. Problem 3. The military cost is escalating. The head of the International Energy Agency warns the global economy faces a major threat, with at least 40 energy facilities across 9 countries severely damaged in the conflict. CNBC Brent crude oil is trading above $111 per barrel. Gas prices are spiking, and every week the strait stays closed costs the global economy approximately $14 billion in disrupted energy trade. But here's where it gets worse. The Trump administration is considering plans to occupy or blockade Iran's Kharg Island, which sits 15 miles offshore and processes 90% of Iran's crude oil exports, to pressure Iran to reopen the strait. Al Jazeera. The military calls it leverage. Defense analysts call it boots on the ground in the one place nobody wants boots on the ground. Kharg Island sits 15 miles off Iran's coast in the northern Persian Gulf. It's not a remote atoll. It's within range of Iranian coastal artillery, anti-ship missiles, and drone swarms launched from the mainland. One senior administration official tells Axios, "We need about a month to weaken the Iranians more with strikes, take the island, and then get them by the balls and use it for negotiations." Al Jazeera. Except occupying Kharg Island means holding an exposed position under constant Iranian fire while keeping supply lines open through a Persian Gulf that Iran is threatening to mine. It's the military equivalent of camping in someone's front yard while they throw rocks at you from the living room window. That's when Trump makes the call that rewrites Monday morning, what gets announced on Truth Social at 6:37 Monday morning as very good and productive conversations. Wikipedia is actually the result of back-channel communications that started 72 hours ago through Oman. Omani Foreign Minister Sayed Badr al-Busaidi confirms his country is mediating negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. Axios Oman has been the quiet middleman in U.S.-Iran communications since 2013, the country that hosted secret talks leading to the original nuclear deal, the country both sides trust because Muscat doesn't take sides. The Omani proposal is straightforward. 5 days, no strikes on power plants, both sides negotiate terms for reopening the strait and de-escalating the broader conflict. But here's what the proposal actually means in practice. For the United States, 5 days to reposition naval assets, degrade Iranian coastal defenses around Kharg Island, and build international coalition support for either forcing the strait open or imposing a counter-blockade on Iranian oil exports. Defense analysts suggest a U.S. naval blockade preventing Iranian oil from reaching its destination could pressure Tehran by denying the regime hard currency needed for its war machine. NPR. For Iran, 5 days to finish dispersing ballistic missile launchers, reinforce coastal defenses, and, most importantly, complete mine-laying operations in the Persian Gulf that would turn any U.S. attempt to occupy Kharg Island into a logistical nightmare. Iran's Defense Council already warned that any attack on Iran's coasts or islands would trigger mine-laying across Gulf sea lanes. CNBC, the 5-day window gives them time to make good on that threat without the U.S. noticing until mines start detonating under coalition warships. It's not a ceasefire, it's a preparation phase, like two fighters circling each other in the ring, waiting for the other guy to drop his guard, and Trump agrees to it, but with conditions nobody's talking about publicly. Monday 06:37 Eastern Time. Trump posts on Truth Social in all caps, "I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East." Wikipedia. He orders the Department of War to postpone strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for 5 days, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Wikipedia. The stock market rallies. Oil prices drop. CNN headlines call it de-escalation. Iran's foreign ministry immediately denies any talks are underway, saying there is no dialogue between Tehran and Washington. CNBC, and claims Trump's statements are an effort to reduce energy prices and gain time to carry out his military plans. CNBC. Both sides are technically correct. There are talks happening through Omani intermediaries, but there's no direct U.S.-Iran dialogue, and neither side is negotiating in good faith toward actual peace. What nobody's saying publicly is what happens if the 5 days expire without resolution. Because Trump's postponement comes with an implicit threat, the chief goal remains stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon, time, and if negotiations fail, the strikes on power plants are just the opening move. The real targets: Kharg Island, Iranian naval facilities, the coastal missile batteries protecting the strait, those come next. And Iran's counter-threat is equally clear. Non-belligerent countries can only transit the strait through coordination with Iran, CNBC, which means Tehran is asserting de facto control over 1/5 of the world's oil supply and daring the US to take it back by force. What neither side anticipated is what happened 11 hours into the postponement. At 17:40 Monday afternoon Eastern Time, Trump tells CNN that the Strait of Hormuz will be open very soon, and he'd like to see the vital shipping route under joint US and Iranian control. Fortune joint control. That's not a ceasefire term. That's an end-state proposal. Trump just floated the idea of the United States and Iran co-managing the most strategically vital waterway in the world. Defense analysts scramble to interpret what that means. Does joint control mean both navies patrol the strait together? Does it mean Iran stops attacking ships and the US stops threatening power plants? Does it mean formal recognition of Iranian territorial claims in exchange for guaranteed passage? Nobody knows, because Trump dropped the idea in a 30-second interview while boarding Air Force One, and neither the State Department nor the Pentagon has clarified what he meant. But here's what it signals. Trump is looking for an off-ramp, and he's willing to consider outcomes that would have been unthinkable 3 weeks ago when this war started. Analyst Mohammed El-Masri of the Doha Institute says it may be his way of giving himself a dignified exit, but the question is what Israel and Iran do next, and whether either side is willing to accept anything less than total victory. Because while Trump postponed strikes for 5 days, Israel continues hitting Tehran. PJ Media Netanyahu's government hasn't agreed to any pause. Israeli jets are still conducting operations over Iranian airspace, and the IRGC is still launching missiles at Israeli cities. The 5-day postponement applies to US strikes on Iranian power plants. It doesn't apply to anything else. And in the Strait of Hormuz, nothing has changed. Maritime traffic through the strait remains at a near standstill weeks after the war began, with Iran effectively closing it to all but approved vessels. Al Jazeera Trump bought 5 days, but he didn't buy peace. As of Monday, 1400 Eastern Time, the postponement is 19 hours old, 101 hours remaining. Here's what's happening right now. In the Persian Gulf, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group maintains position 60 nautical miles from Iranian territorial waters, close enough to launch strikes in under 15 minutes, far enough to claim defensive posture. Over Iraq, USM Q-9 Reaper drones continue surveillance flights along the Iranian border, synthetic aperture radar mapping Iranian coastal defenses around Kharg Island. The intelligence being gathered isn't for negotiations, it's for targeting packages. At Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar, tanker aircraft sit fully fueled on the ramp. F-15E Strike Eagles loaded with bunker busters, the kind of ordnance you don't load unless you're planning to use it within 72 hours. In Tehran, Iranian state television broadcasts footage of IRGC missile crews conducting readiness drills. Translation: we're not standing down, we're reloading. And somewhere in the Strait of Hormuz, over 150 merchant vessels remain anchored, waiting for a waterway to reopen that neither side is willing to concede control over. Trump called it productive conversations. Wikipedia Iran called it Trump backing down out of fear. Bloomberg: neither one is right, because the postponement didn't stop the war, it just paused the countdown, and when those 5 days expire, someone has to blink first.